I'm joined now by All Rise News' Adam Klasfeld. Adam, all eyes across the country right now are on Portland, which is the latest focus of Trump's ire, the latest city where he's deployed these troops. The legality of this move is obviously in question, and now we have a major update about that now that this effort has been challenged by Oregon's Attorney General in court. Can you explain what just happened in court?
Absolutely, Brian. Well, a federal judge in Oregon who was appointed by Donald Trump blocked Trump's deployment of troops to Oregon, finding that the basis that Trump stated, one, was not made in good faith. And she said, and this is one of the most blistering quotes from this ruling, quote, the president's determination was simply untethered to the facts. And
Yeah.
so if we want to take a bit of a step back here, this has been a live legal issue since Trump was sending troops to Los Angeles. And what we've been seeing is that courts are very, very deferential to anyone who's president of the United States and sends the troops, that the threshold is low, that the standard is a colorable basis. Now, one of Trump's own appointees has said that a colorable basis doesn't mean pulled out of whole cloth, that it's simply untethered to the facts, that she said. So this is, I should say, in the same district where the Ninth Circuit had overruled another judge's determination that Trump should not have sent the troops. So this is a judge who looked at that decision and said, well, this set of facts is different. Whatever evidence the Trump administration brought forward in California, it's even more of a stretch. It's simply untethered. And this is one of the most favorable draws that he could have gotten in Oregon.
Right. I mean, you said yourself, this is a judge who he himself appointed to the bench.
Absolutely. And she found that his rationale was untethered to the facts. And
Yeah.
so that's why she blocked the deployment with this temporary restraining order.
And of course, that rationale, and we've spoken about this in the past, there are one of three points that you need to hit. One is that there is some rebellion or insurrection. Another is that there is an invasion. Another is that there is an inability of a local government to be able to effectuate its laws. And so clearly, according not just to us, but also to the judge who Trump himself appointed and who oversaw this case, none of those bars were met by this administration. I'm curious, what you were describing before was, I guess, what's called presumption of regularity. That because you have the federal government that often operates in good faith, that judges are more often than not, or most often, deferential to the federal government, and they benefit from this presumption of regularity over the course of decades and decades and decades. Do you think that by virtue of the way the Trump administration has comported itself in court, the way that it has kind of discarded law in deference to its own, breathless desire to enact its political agenda, that presumption of regularity is going away, and that whereas normally the federal government would come into a courtroom and they would say, hey, if you say that you need troops here because of XYZ, more often than not, we're going to be deferential to you. But the way that we've watched the Trump administration kind of comport itself all across the country, try to ignore laws, try to undermine the Constitution, is that chipping away here at the same presumption of regularity that the administration would have otherwise benefited from?
Absolutely 100%. Like, for example, there is a case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia where the judge in the habeas case, Paula Zinis, explicitly said that they have destroyed the presumption of regularity.
Okay.
That comment by a federal judge was used in the case in the Middle District of Tennessee, the criminal case in Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, where a federal judge recently found that they had made an argument that was sufficient enough for vindictive prosecution to have an evidentiary hearing. That's a major ruling in a case. When we talk about judges blocking a troop deployment or a judge finding the possibility of vindictive prosecution, these are rare occurrences. The fact that these have happened within a couple of days of each other just goes to show the skepticism with which the courts are looking into the actions of this administration. And it goes to show that simply declaring Portland to be war ravaged doesn't make it so.
Yeah.
And so that Trump might think that he can construct a social media reality where a major American city is war ravaged and try to send the troops to manufacture social media content to make it look war ravaged. But when you have to take it to court, you need to support that.
Right.
Then there are definitions to some of the categories that you mentioned, Brian, like rebellion. I'm looking at the ruling right now. She's reciting the standard for a rebellion. A rebellion must not only be violent, but also be armed. Second, a rebellion must be organized. Third, a rebellion must be open and avowed. And fourth, a rebellion must be against the government as a whole, often with an aim of overthrowing the government rather than in opposition to a single law or issue. So when Trump and his DOJ go into court and make an argument that Portland is under a rebellion. That was an argument that, one, didn't even fly in California where he won. He won under a very different prong, under a very low threshold. Here, a judge had him strike out on all three of the prongs, saying that there's not even any evidence that local police can't handle this.
Okay, so it's worth asking here, now that we do have federal agents that are deployed in Portland, and now that we do have this ruling that came down from this Trump-appointed judge, what happens next? And specifically, what happens if the Trump administration opts not to comply with this judge's ruling?
Well, right now, as I see from the ruling, this ruling is active. If they are in defiance of this court order, she will have to initiate whatever proceedings to force the government into compliance. As we speak, this ruling was just hit the docket. I don't know whether the government is trying to initiate an appeal. I assume that they will. But right now, they have a federal judge's order from a judge who Trump appointed, ordering them that the federalization deployment of the Oregon National Guard is blocked for 14 days. And there are going to be more proceedings to decide whether that will be extended. There does not appear to be any wiggle room that I can see in this ruling that would give the Trump administration any fig leaf that if they were to push ahead of this in defiance of a federal judge, that they wouldn't be in contempt of court.
How similar is this case in Oregon to the case in California? And if I'm not mistaken, yes, the federal government was successful in batting back the preliminary injunction that Gavin Newsom in California sought against this troop deployment. But when it went to the courts when it went to trial on the merits, Judge Breyer ruled against the Trump administration, and now it's sitting in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so, I guess it's safe to say that as of this one ruling that we have on the merits, the Trump administration has also lost in California. But how similar are those two situations that we're seeing in California and in Oregon?
Well, this ruling is even more sweeping than the ruling in California. This is more on par with the initial ruling by Judge Breyer ordering the troops out, essentially, saying that Trump did not have the power to deploy the troops in California. This is an order finding that he does not have the power to deploy the troops in Oregon. Now, where the Trump administration succeeded in California is that they overturned the more expansive ruling, ordering the troops out. To this day, the Trump administration still has the ability to send troops in California, but they are constrained that there is now an injunction blocking them from violating the Posse Comitatus Act, which forbids the use of that military for civilian law enforcement. That's what the injunction is against them in California. What the judge found here is that even under the standard in which the Trump administration won in the Ninth Circuit, when they overruled the the judge's decision ordering them to not deploy the troops. This judge found that this satisfied that standard. She's saying, yes, I read the Ninth Circuit decision. I saw what the standard they articulated is, but the basis, the rationale, that the excuse that the Trump administration articulated in order to send the troops here, it's even weaker than in California. That it, as I said earlier, the quote is totally untethered to the facts on the ground, totally untethered to the reality. So it's the specific weakness of the Trump administration and Trump's rationale, the claim that it's war ravage, the fact that they could not support any of the things that they were saying in court is why this ruling exists.
Do you think that looking back, the situations are so different between what we're seeing in Portland, which is, again, satisfies none of these planks, and what happened in California, which also, I mean, look, I live here. The notion that we had some rebellion against the government, the notion that we had some invasion or insurrection against the government, the notion that California was not able to effectively effectuate its own laws. I mean, all of that is completely upside down. Do you think that even the decision, that initial decision, batting back the temporary restraining order or the preliminary injunction in California was misguided, recognizing that really none of those planks were satisfied in the city that I live in either?
I think there was a lot of surprise in the legal community when the Ninth Circuit gave the decision it did for the very reason that you said, Brian.
Right.
Because this was, we all saw what was actually happening in Los Angeles. And what the conversations that I heard going on in the legal community is the standard that deferential? Can Trump use the fact that in a large protest, if there are one or two incidents, does that mean it can't be responded to by local law enforcement? Right. And it's a live issue. I mean, right now, there is a question of whether the Ninth Circuit's full court will revisit the decision en banc and overrule what that three-judge panel said. I think you're right. As a matter of personal opinion, it's astonishing that the standard is so deferential that what we saw in California could qualify under the legal standard. But what this judge is saying is that the facts on the ground in Portland don't even have those one or two incidents that the right. Trump administration tried to amplify, that this is just so untethered, as right. she put it, that it can't even fit that highly, highly deferential standard by that three-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit.
Right. I think what happened in California was there were a couple of Waymos that were set on fire, and so the Trump administration exploited those specific instances to give themselves some pretext to be able to say, look, clearly the LAPD can't cover this, so we need federal troops to come in. But that's not even and like that's not too much for the LAPD to be able to handle a couple of Waymos that were set on fire. It's certainly not the worst thing that's ever happened in the United States. But even that very thin pretext doesn't exist in Portland. So look, this is, as you said, a live issue right now. So we'll stay on top of this. I want to let folks know that this is especially important because these troop deployment cases are going to serve as the basis not just for Trump's ability to send in troops and normalize this idea of troops answerable to Donald Trump being the ones to march down our streets, which is bad enough unto itself, but eventually him being able to deploy these troops gives him some legal framework to be able to do it as we head toward the election. And we know what happens when when Trump has boots on the ground that are answerable to him when he gets these ideas like, hey, what if we seize the voting machines, which again is what he tried to do in 2020 in Georgia, that composed a part of the RICO prosecution against him and about a dozen other co-conspirators. So we've been here before. This is not something that we're making up out of whole cloth. And if he has boots on the ground to be able to effectuate these plans, he'll be able to do them much easier than what his failed efforts showed in 2020. So it's not just important in that it's happening right in front of us, but it's also important for what it forebodes as we head toward midterms and then a general election. So with that said, for everybody who's watching right now, if you want to support Adam's work, which I would highly, highly recommend, please sign up for All Rise News. I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. If ever you were looking for independent journalism that covers all of these issues with the urgency that they deserve, I could not recommend All Rise News higher. So again, I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. If you are not yet signed up, please go ahead and sign up. Adam, as always, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Brian. Always a pleasure.